Wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining us today on the PowerTeacher Pro info webinar. This is meant to be more informational, um, where we are going to go through a quick little dive into PowerTeacher Pro, how to set it up, how it's going to look for the teachers, what to look for, how to answer some questions that teachers might come up with. And so we'll go through all that today. I did want to share this quick reference guide. We found this great resource for everyone. Um, I have it on screen here in the webinar, and I did share it out in the handouts. So if you open up your little GoToWebinar control panel on the top right, there should be a little orange arrow you can click on. There should be a handouts area. Currently, I've shared out one handout, so there should be one PDF listed there. Please be sure to download that and save it to your computer. It's going to be a great resource for you guys going forward. It's got a quick little tutorial on little things in the gradebook. These are very much similar functions to the one in the old gradebook, but this is going to show you how to do it in the new gradebook. So definitely you want to save this and put it on your system there. Okay. Please feel free to ask any and all questions as we're going through this. I love to pause and take a few questions as we are going through the webinar. We can put in more information in there by asking as many questions as possible. Okay. Before we get started, I did have a couple of questions here that I was asked before we get started, so I did want to answer those. Let's see here. There is a question out there asking, are we going to address why teachers would want to switch to PowerTeacher Pro versus the regular gradebook? Yes, absolutely. We definitely want to address this. That's a great question to start out with. Why are we doing this switch to PowerTeacher Pro at all? There's a number of reasons, but I think one of the main reasons that we're doing this is because with more and more schools switching to Chromebooks as their main computing device. Gradebook, the old gradebook or the regular gradebook, does not normally work with Chromebooks. Okay, so the old gradebook is a Java-based gradebook. It's a gradebook that needs Java to run on a computer. So it'll work fine on your desktops, laptops, you know, um, Mac computers, but it will not work well on things like phones, Chromebooks, tablets, things like that. Things that you can't normally install the Java platform. So that's really where the need was to redevelop a gradebook that has accessibility from any and all device. And so that's kind of where the gradebook came into play. The PowerTeacher Pro gradebook, that is, came to play. They developed it in HTML gradebook, and this gradebook is available as long as you have a web browser. It should be able to be pulled up on any device that has a web browser. So we're talking about smartphones, tablets, Chromebooks, iPads, laptops, desktops, any and all device that can open up a web browser. HTML PowerTeacher Pro should be able to work on that. So that's first and foremost. That's a great first question. I have another question here. Should we open/log into PowerTeacher Pro? No, I don't. We will definitely have another webinar later on in the year, closer to August, where we will actually take a deep dive into PowerTeacher Pro. At that point, I might actually create test accounts for everybody to use, so you can log in and play around with it. But at this time, no, we're not gonna do a deep dive into PowerTeacher Pro where you guys can play around with some of the features at the moment. This is meant to be more informational, so please just look on screen and ask your questions as we move along here. And then my last question here before we move on, does PowerTeacher Pro work with Chromebooks? Yes, that is kind of the reason for its existence. So I will send that back to all so you guys can have that answer there. Okay, one more question before we get started on the little tour. How do you turn PowerTeacher Pro? How do you turn on PowerTeacher Pro for your teachers? I believe that was the question. And so that is a really good question that I'll transition us right into the demo. But before we get to that one, I found another great question. Are all art schools being asked to switch to PowerTeacher Pro? That is the best question, I believe, so far. No. The answer is no. You are not required to switch to PowerTeacher Pro. Okay, for my understanding, PowerSchool is going to allow for both gradebooks to exist at the same time. And so your teachers will actually have the ability to choose whether they want to transition to PowerTeacher Pro and learn something brand new, or stick with the regular gradebook, which is a Java-based gradebook that can actually still work, and it's going to be continued to be supported for a number of years to come. So you are not asked to switch to PowerTeacher Pro at this time. And so that is a great question. So I will send that along so everybody has that there. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and get started here. I've answered a lot of the questions that came in early here. And so let's go ahead and deep dive into how to turn on PowerTeacher Pro for your teachers. I'm going to minimize this quick reference guide. I've already logged into my admin portal. I'm already logged into my test school. And so for those of you in this webinar, this is the admin portal. If you do not have access to your admin portal, just kind of see what it takes for your admins to turn it on. But if you are an administrator, and I see a lot of names in here that I've talked to, a lot of you are administrators in this webinar, so please just pay attention to how to turn that on, because it's going to be very, very important. Okay. One of the nice things to note about the turning on PowerTeacher Pro is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. It's not like you have to turn it on for all your teachers. And as a matter of fact, you don't even have to turn it on for all their classes. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go over to teacher schedules on the left-hand side here. And I'm just going to click on a teacher account that I believe we're going to be logging into here. Okay. So notice I have a teacher schedule listed here. These are the classes that they're assigned to. And as we know as administrators, the clicking on the section number will actually pop up the settings that we can do for that class. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that section number for the 4th grade social studies class. Here we are in edit section. Okay, this is all pretty standard stuff. We're going to scroll past all this information. And now, for those of you that have seen this already, there is a gradebook type dropdown. Okay, notice this is per class setting. This is a per class setting. So this doesn't mean you have to change all other classes at once. You can just switch one of their classes or half of their classes to the new gradebook. So when you look at the drop downs, you should have two. You should have a PowerTeacher Pro gradebook and a PowerTeacher Pro link. Okay, everybody that has not switched to PowerTeacher Pro yet, it should be set to PTG. Okay, to turn on PowerTeacher Pro, you simply just switch that class gradebook type to PowerTeacher Pro and hit submit. And as far as the administrator is concerned, that is all that needs to be done for that class. Okay, so if a teacher has 10 classes, you'll have to, and you want to switch all of their classes, you have to do it for each individual class. one at a time. Um, Say you're in a situation where you want your whole entire school to transition to PowerTeacher Pro, you just want everything switched on for every teacher. Um, that can be a little bit of a task. So what I would advise for that is to send an email to helpdesk@sbtcsupport.org. I'm going to go ahead and write it into this question panel. If ready to turn on for entire school, please email helpdesk@sbtcsupport.org. I'm going to go ahead and send that to everybody. That's only if you're ready to do it for everyone, for every class, for every teacher. You're ready to do it. Send us an email. We can help you out with turning it on for everyone. Okay. I know that if some teachers want, some administrators want to do a slow rollout where they introduce it to half of the staff or the staff that's willing to experiment with some of these new features, you can just switch it on for a couple of teachers and not the whole school all at once. Just information to kind of think about, because I know transitioning to something brand new, it tends to scare a few people. So, you know, you have a little bit of a control as administrators on what you can turn on at what time for who and for what classes. So there's a great question that came in while I was introducing that drop down, that I'll go back to it and I will address the question here. So notice it allows me to switch from PTG to PTP, and so it may seem on the surface that I can actually interchangeably switch back and forth as I please. Well, that's not actually the case. As somebody pointed out to me, the question is, once you switch, you cannot go back, correct? And that is correct, actually. So if you have a class that is currently set to the regular gradebook, or for demo purposes, PTG on screen here, and you switch it to PTP, that is a one-time switch. Okay, when the teacher logs in, and I will show you that on one of the classes here, the teacher will go through what's called a migration process, where all of the grades and assignments will get migrated to this new gradebook. Okay, once that migration process is complete, there's not a way for you to undo that migration. Okay, so that data will live in PowerTeacher Pro going forward. Okay, can we get around that? Can we kind of hack it a little bit? Sure. We could always recreate the class as new. Delete the PowerTeacher Pro class and create a new PowerTeacher Gradebook class, or the regular Gradebook class. But we would need to recreate the enrollments, and if there were any assignments and grades in that old grade, that class that we want to revert back from, we would simply need to recreate those in the new class. So there is a kind of a way around that, in the sense that we're creating something new. But this same exact class, can we simply just switch back to PTG? The answer to that is no. Once you switch, you're switched to PTP. So I hope that answers that question. If not everyone's using Pro, does that affect the report card printing? No, that's actually another really great question. Absolutely not. The data is stored in very similar tables in our database, and so when you run the report cards, it'll know how to pull those grades and print them just as normal as if you were running the regular gradebook or the PowerTeacher Pro. It's going to look the same. So there's nothing to worry about there. I know in PowerTeacher Pro's early days, there were a few errors where some grades didn't print. I think at this point, we've upgraded enough to kind of patch some of those errors. And so that shouldn't be happening anymore, but that's not to say they won't happen again. PowerTeacher Pro is a very new product. I think it's less than 2 years old. Uh, and so it's possible they might come up with a bug here and there. And then PowerSchool is pretty good about releasing a patch um, that we could apply right before report cards go out so that we can get that fixed. I haven't seen anything lately though, so that's kind of the good news. Does the historical gradebook also migrate over? Yes, it actually does. So the data from previous years does actually get migrated. It's a one-time migration. The data lives there. And that actually is a really good question to raise because if we were to create a new class where we're switching back to PTP, that historical gradebook data won't be there. And so that's a good point. It does migrate over, and if we migrate it over, we can get that historical gradebook data back. Okay, so that's a good question. Grades will always live in the student record, but with regards to historical gradebook data, that's a good point because that, if you guys are aware, you can actually switch back a year or so to get some of that historical gradebook data. Okay, very good questions to begin with. So let's go back. I'm going to find one of the classes that are assigned to this teacher. Let's take a look at this fourth grade math class. Okay, it's set to PTG, so I'm going to go ahead and set it to PTP, just like you guys would. And I'm going to hit submit. So we'll switch gears in a little bit here, and we'll switch to the teacher account so you guys can see what that looks like once we make the switch on the admin portal. So I'll make the switch for this fourth grade math section 418 so you can kind of see what that looks like on the teacher's perspective. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the start page. Okay, and let's go ahead and log out. Okay, now to switch to a teacher's account, we do have to remove the admin component to our URL. So that's archchicago.powerschool.com, and we're going to remove everything after the .com, and we're going to do /teachers with an S. That should get us to a very similar login page, except this is a teacher sign-in page. Okay, we'll go ahead and log in with that test account that I had prepared for us here. Wonderful. Here is the teacher account that we have set up, all the same classes. So this is kind of what teachers see when they log in, just for the administrators that weren't, maybe some new administrators that haven't seen this before, this is what they currently see. Okay, if the teacher only has the regular gradebook, they would go on the left-hand side and click launch under the PTG 2.8 area. Click that launch button, and that'll get them into gradebook. Okay, so that's for the regular gradebook, by the way. For PowerTeacher Pro, they would actually have a link on here that is very much like a hyperlink that they just simply click on that says PowerTeacher Pro, and it'll instantly open the gradebook for that teacher. Okay, now I'm not going to click on it just yet because I want to highlight one more thing. As teachers see their current class listing here, current classes, they also see these icons on the right, but one of the new things that you'll start to see is this PowerTeacher Pro indicator. Okay, so notice I see a PowerTeacher Pro indicator for this class, not for this class or this class. We have to kind of go back down a little bit to see it. Here's another one here. And then there's 3 more at the bottom. Okay, so anything that has this PowerTeacher Pro indicator, those are the classes that have actually transitioned to PowerTeacher Pro. These classes I have not, that I just highlighted, and these classes I have not transitioned them to the new PowerTeacher Gradebook. And so, as you can see, you could individually pick classes that transition to the PowerTeacher Pro Gradebook, or simply you could pick one or the other. You can do all of them at one time. You can do half of them. You can do just one if they want to test it out. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to highlight here. Let's go ahead and click on the link PowerTeacher Pro on the top left-hand side. So I'll let that load for a little bit. Okay, this is wonderful. This is actually what I wanted to show you guys. So the first time you transition one class from PowerTeacher Pro Gradebook to PowerTeacher Pro, you're gonna get this migrate data to PowerTeacher Pro wizard that pops up, this little menu of options. Okay, and so what it's basically saying is that this is the new class that is coming over to PowerTeacher Pro. There are 5 assignments in that class, and we need to migrate that data to PowerTeacher Pro. Okay, we can click on the summary link to kind of get an idea of what's going on. It doesn't seem like there's any summary data there, but we definitely need to hit migrate in order for that data to come over to PowerTeacher Pro. So let's go ahead and hit migrate. Takes not that many minutes. We actually got an error here. Okay, I'm glad this error came up because this is actually an error that might happen when you have a category in Gradebook that didn't come over to the PowerTeacher Pro, or there's an error somewhere in there. So I've had seen this before. And so if you have an error like this, be sure to reach out to our support desk. We can look at the categories in the old Gradebook, compare them to the new Gradebook, and see how we can remedy that so that the migration is pretty smooth here. But it doesn't look like it's going to allow me to migrate this class until we fix that error. Let me go ahead and click this X so we can just bypass that really quick. And let's see if we can get into the gradebook without doing that really quick. I'm just switching that off screen, so it'll just take me a moment. Give me 30 seconds to switch that for you guys. Okay, just finished making the modifications off screen. Let's go ahead and try to log in one more time. All right, let's go back to the PowerTeacher Pro link. That should take a moment to load. And so this is the new gradebook here. The default view is assignments. I haven't played around with a lot of features in the gradebook. So as you can see, there's no assignments listed here. Let's see if I can find a class that has a few assignments that we can view here. Maybe the spelling class, maybe. That's okay. We'll get into kind of navigating this a little more once we have some classes. Let me see, maybe I created some for trimester 2. There we go. So the assignment list looks like this. Okay, so this is kind of like the default view when you first log in. Okay, as you can see, it's very different. The gradebook kind of was a little pop-up app that had the classes on the left, the students listed on the left-hand side, and your score sheet or your assignment listing kind of across the top there. This is very different now. Teachers are going to be able to switch between classes by simply clicking on this arrow here. Okay, so I'll show you that there. I'll drop down the classes. Notice that in here too, it tells you what classes are set to PTG or the old regular gradebook. So these classes are set to the gradebook. I cannot switch into those. As a matter of fact, you'll get an error that says so-and-so class is set to PowerTeacher gradebook. And so that won't let me actually click into any of those classes. If I switch over to a class that is PTG, it will pop up some data here. Okay. Switching terms, that's simply this drop down here. So as you can see, they can select all terms and view a bunch of information for that term or those terms. In this case, I'm looking at the assignments listing screen for fourth grade science. And so this is kind of what we've got with regards to assignments. If I want to create a new assignment, there is a create button on the top right. As you can see, I can create assignments or categories. Most of the time, teachers will create assignments and they can individually create all the assignment details here. We'll go into more detail there on the teacher training, but I just want to give you guys an admin overview of what is possible. So here's the classes. You can actually assign individual students to classes. I'm sorry, to an assignment. And so if you create an assignment for half the class, you can specify that with the assignments tab. Here are your standards. So for those schools that use successful learner traits, this is where those teachers would assign those successful learner traits to the assignment. And then of course there's a publish, so teachers can have an ability to have control over whether to publish something or not. Okay, so we'll X that out. A little bit more of a tutorial here. On the left, there should be a grading area. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight that right here. If you click on that, it should actually pop up a menu of different links you can click into, including the score sheet that many teachers are familiar with. Here's a listing of students. Here's a listing of assignments. Okay, and everything is clickable, so I can actually click into a particular assignment and just get the scores for that one assignment. I'm going to go back to score sheet so I can see all the assignments. There's not very many in here, but as you can see, there's a running total going, which is a course grade. I could also write in a comment by simply clicking on the course grade for that student. Something pops up on the right-hand side where I can absolutely put a comment down here where I've highlighted. Okay, and this is kind of the new score inspector on the right-hand side. This is where teachers will put in their information. Okay, so as you can see, this is graded based on letter grade. So if I put in an A or a B or a C, it'll actually allow me to do that manually. The buttons are a little big for a computer and mouse, but that's made like that on purpose because it's very much cross-platform, this new gradebook. So the buttons are a little bit bigger for your touchscreen phones, for your touchscreen tablets, so that you could touch on screen those buttons and not have them to be, too small between those two gradebooks, between the gradebooks or the different devices, I should say. Let's take a look what else we can do here. Just a little more of a tour here as more questions come in. I'm waiting for, please do go ahead and ask those questions because they will come in handy. So here we can look at things like progress on traditional grades. You can see things like teachers can view grade distribution, things like that, so they can get an idea of where students are excelling, what groups are excelling, what groups are not excelling, get an idea of that. That's all new metrics that the PowerTeacher Pro presents to teachers. The report listing is cut down to the most useful reports from the regular gradebook. You've got a score sheet report, an individual student report, and a multi-function assignment report. So you got an assignment report a student report, and a score sheet report that you can run on a student. There are some settings, and I want to cover these settings really quickly because some teachers might find that it's the display is different than others. This is where you would come into and change some of that information. Okay, you can change the way the student's name shows up. You can change the sort of students, how they're sorted in their gradebook. You can change um, how the classes are displayed, by period day, by section number, that'll show up here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let me think about this. I want to say it's in here, the question mark. There's always help that your teachers can click on and view information. There's a little tips and tricks and videos. Okay, this is all knowledge base that the teachers have access to. And so they're not alone in this transition is what we're getting at, is that there's a lot of information, many little videos that they can click on that show them how to transition from PowerTeacher Gradebook to PowerTeacher Pro. And so I did want to show you guys that. So it becomes a very self-sufficient transition where they can kind of help themselves out here a little bit. Let's click on the tips and tricks. Again, takes us back to that knowledge base. This is the other thing I wanted to bring up. So when you click on the person, you have a couple of different views, which is really nice that they did this because you can actually have a teacher change their view to large view. So when they go to view some of this data, let me go back here, I'm sorry. If it's too small, they could kind of enlarge some of that data so it's a lot bigger on screen, and they could view it better on a particular device they're working on, say it's a cell phone versus a tablet. And you could also switch back to small view so that you see more of the data on screen if you're working with a Chromebook as opposed to a smartphone. And so you do have those toggles to kind of switch back and forth between the views. You could always get back to the PowerTeacher Pro to take, say, attendance, for example, by clicking on the PowerTeacher Pro gradebook icon. I did that earlier by mistake, and so that took me back to the schedule listing. And so I could take attendance here and then quickly jump back into my PowerTeacher Pro portal here. Have a couple of questions here, which I want to take a pause and really answer them. So what is the key difference between PowerTeacher Pro and PowerTeacher Gradebook other than the ability to use another platform to access it? Okay, great question. As it stands, so there's less reports. Okay, so for those of you that may have been a teacher at some time or work side by side with a teacher, there was more reports available on the PowerTeacher Pro. I'm sorry, on the PowerTeacher Gradebook, the old regular gradebook. There's more reports than these four. So that's one change that I can think of. There is more metrics in PowerTeacher Pro than there is in the regular gradebook, where you have things like grade distribution. There are reports like this in the admin portal, but not in the teacher portal. So this is kind of nice that they made this grade distribution report available in the new Pro. One of the biggest things that I think has changed with regards to PowerTeacher Pro and PowerTeacher Gradebook, the regular gradebook, is that there is not a method in this new gradebook to email parents directly. So that is a big change that happened that has actually restricted a lot of people from switching over to the new gradebook. Some teachers have brought to my attention that they use it tremendously, and so they're sticking with the old gradebook simply for that feature. Um, that's not to say that PowerSchool won't add that feature later in the development of this new gradebook, but as it stands, there's no email feature in this gradebook. So I couldn't click on, say, a student or a group of students and email them anymore. That's not a function anymore or a feature in this new PowerTeacher Pro. I hope that answered your question. That is one of the biggest, I think, changes. Um, let's see, is it possible to copy assignments from one class to another? Yes, absolutely, and it's a lot more fast, I believe. So if I go to assignment lists, believe if I click on, let's see, click on the assignment name, and let's take a look here. I forget which. Here we go. There's a duplicate. Um, there's a duplicate button at the bottom, so I can simply create another assignment based on those same settings from the previous assignment. So I could copy, so to speak, one assignment to another assignment to another class, I suppose, or within the same class. Here, I'm copying the assignment from one to the other by creating a new class. That way, there's a duplicate button at the bottom, and um, if I wanted to take that same assignment and apply it to multiple classes, there is a drop down where I can not only make that one assignment in the homeroom, I can make it in my other three classes as well. So that's kind of the copy feature that they implemented, where you can kind of create one assignment and apply that one creation to four different classes at one time. That's all during the assignment creation process as well. And so we'll go ahead and discard that. So hopefully that answers your question there, because there definitely is a way to copy. Can you show how to go to those videos again? Yes, that's simply just in the question mark up here. I'll just highlight that really quick. That's in this question drop down, and then there's videos there where you can kind of click into and play around and view some of those videos and get some more information. You guys are more than welcome to call our support desk, but I think PowerSchool kind of anticipated a lot of questions and training and retraining on this new product, so they prepared a pretty thorough knowledge base with information and videos on how to do minor little tasks, tasks in the gradebook basically. So hopefully that helps. That source should be available to all your teachers. I have another couple of questions here. If a school switches to PowerTeacher Pro as a whole before assignments are entered for the new school year, will the teacher still see the migrate request while opening the Pro for the first time? I want to say yes, Lisa. That question was a great one. I want to say that migration thing still comes up, because it might not only be I don't believe it's only just migrating current data. I believe it's also migrating historical data. Um, so if you can, let me see here. See if I can move this off my screen. Um, we can certainly play around with that, but I want to say yes, because see how you can switch to other terms in the system. I'm assuming that that data will also migrate from those previous terms. And so I don't know if we can get around that one-time migration. I could certainly run a test for that, and then just let you email you back with that answer. But I want to say yes, the transition still needs to happen. I have a comment here. I have a comment about how teachers use the feature of emailing a lot, and switching to the new gradebook may serve as a disadvantage. Um, yes, I believe Gradebook itself has gone through, and the email feature at that has gone through a couple of transitions at this point now. So with this new Gradebook, that doesn't allow for you to email, but in addition to that, the emails that do go out from the old Gradebook or the regular Gradebook, parents can no longer hit reply and send back to the teacher email, and so that's yet another change that happened where parents will now receive the email from the teacher, and in the email as well, it'll say, please use this email, or email was sent on behalf of this teacher, and then the teacher's email address is thrown in there so parents can click on that and write an email back as opposed to hitting reply. And so I know the email topic has been discussed quite a few, not in this particular webinar, but in our admin refresher, we did talk about how that was one of the new things that happened with PowerSchool 11 that we transitioned to in the spring of this year. So hopefully that helps there. Someone did tell me about a PowerSchool add-on that can generate a list of emails. That still kind of doesn't fix the issue where you can send emails directly from the gradebook. It would still like create a list where you can copy and paste it into your, Gmail or Yahoo or whatever other, Hotmail, whatever email provider you use. You would copy and paste a list of email addresses and put it in there. It seems as though PowerSchool themselves are kind of moving away from sending emails through the portal, through the gradebook portal. If that changes, of course, we'd be happy to communicate that out to everybody. But as it currently stands, I don't believe it's going to be available very soon. Okay, that's kind of the quick overview here on Gradebook, the new Gradebook, and what it does and what it's capable of doing. And so I wanted to kind of open up the floor for more questions, specific to maybe how to how to transition the whole school, maybe, or if you have any questions about what you're seeing on screen, please feel free to post those in the question panel. We're at about 1:51. This was going to go till about 2. And so I wanted just to make sure I give you guys enough time to ask all your questions, which is going to be really useful to anyone that watches the recording later on. I do have a really interesting question here. Is there a higher cost for Pro? No, there's not a higher cost for Pro. I believe the future of PowerSchool lies in this new gradebook. So they're going to continue to put in more development and more features into this new gradebook, but I don't believe that comes at a higher cost. It's the same cost, 2 different gradebooks. I guess it would just be kind of an idea of whether your administration wants to roll that out this year or how to roll out that gradebook. Okay, I have a couple more questions here. These are coming in now, so that's awesome. Will this eventually become the ultimate gradebook? all schools be required to move to the pro? Um, no, I don't believe schools will ever be required to move to pro. Um, in attending a few Power School hosted meetings about this, I don't believe there's any deadline set um, for not supporting the regular gradebook. So, as far as I understand, the regular gradebook is going to be in existence for a number of years to come. I don't believe there will ever be a time when we'll be forced to move to the new pro gradebook. Um, but with that said, I mean, they are putting more of their development time and efforts into the new gradebook to kind of bring that up to um, what customers like. And so um, your schools may just want to switch to the new gradebook as more features become available. I have another great question about SLT grades. So it says we are able to do SLT grades in the final grades section of PTG. How much easier is that in creating an assignment? Is it still a feature with Pro? Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I didn't really want to get too much in depth on how to assign um, SLTs, but since the question was asked, I'll go ahead and kind of get into that a little bit. There is going to be a way for you to mass assign SLTs, and I'm trying to remember where it is to get to that here. I believe it's in grading, maybe score sheet. I believe the way we did it earlier was a little different. Uh, edit assignment, standards, and then I think you can add in standards here. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you can grade them all at once too. So I believe, I know I'm kind of showing you the assignment way of doing it, but I believe there's also a final grades way of doing it as well. So standards progress maybe. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, here we go. So I don't know if you. So what I did first is I went up to classes and noticed that under the classes tab, there's a groups tab. You can click on a group. So in this case, it comes up with 4 classes because I have 4 PowerTeacher Pro classes available. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that group. Then you can go to students standard progress. And then for the whole trimester, I believe, let's see, these are self-contained standards here. So these are the ones that normally appear in the homeroom. Here are some science standards, or not standards, I'm sorry, successful learner traits. So here are some successful learner traits for science. If I keep scrolling, here are some for social studies. And there are none assigned to spelling, so I don't have anything down there. But as you can see, I can score them all at one time here. Um, so it doesn't have to be on an assignment uh, I don't have to create an assignment in associate standards that way. I mean, that was always an alternative way of scoring successful learner traits, but I could also select all my classes by going to groups, select classes, students, standards, progress, and I can score them all on one sheet here. So I hope that helps because that was a question that came up um, in one of my earlier PowerTeacher Pro trainings with teachers, and so hopefully showing you guys that it is possible from a administrative perspective. That's going to be really helpful. Does not seem like there is a quick fill option. I believe the quick fill is still there, but the way I think it looks like, so for example, if I wanted to do something like highlight, like start here basically, and I wanted to add a 3 and then simply just fill down, I can just do that. So hopefully that helps a lot there. So that's quick fill right there. This is one student, all classes. Let's see if I can do one student, multiple classes. So we'll save that for example. So if I were to open this, there we go. Let me go to my other SLT class. I want to say it's a science. Oh, this is just a quick look up. Okay. I believe there's a way to do it with all the students as well. That might be under assignments though. Good question though. Yeah, I'm pretty positive there is a way to do all standards, um, grade all the standards for all the students down. Um, but I showed you guys how to do it per student, I believe, by going to student progress. Yeah, there we go. Let me see if I can show more. Standards. Maybe we could do it this way. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Finally stumbled across it. I apologize. But yes, to answer your question about quick fill, if you get into, so you do have to make the student selection though, where you have all the classes selected, and then you can go to grading, standards, and then in here you can fill out a 3, and then simply just click this fill, which is here, and that will just fill down everything. You get okay. So there is a way to do it. It's gonna take a little bit of time to get familiarized with where the clicks are, but there should be a way to actually group that and fill it in. Okay. So uh, let me see if there's anything else, any other questions out there. Were we able to? We are able to do SLT pages in the final grade section PTG much easier. Yeah, no. So there is a way to do a quick fill, really quick. But it is going to take some time to get familiarized with whether to do it by student or by a whole class. And so that was kind of the struggle here to figure out which would be the best way. You could do it either way, it seems like. You can go to the student, go to the standard progress and fill it for one student, 4 classes, or go to grading standards and do um, all students. I believe you can toggle to the right here. All students at one time. But I don't believe you could do all classes. I don't think that's a. I believe that's a possibility. You could toggle between classes and fill and do a quick fill that way, but I don't believe there's a way to do all classes, all students, all classes. I don't believe there's a way to do that. I don't even think there was a way to do that in the old gradebook, to be honest. Um, it was always kind of the same thing. You could do it per student for all classes, or you can do a whole class at one time, but you still have to switch to different classes. And so hopefully that helps. I'm not seeing any more questions come in. So please let me know if there's anything you didn't see on the webinar or didn't get answered. Um, please do post that question now. I'm going to give you guys I'm going to leave the recording going for another minute or so before we stop it. And then we'll go ahead and make that available to those that were not able to join us in today's webinar.